Hello there. We're talking about Star Wars today because I'm a pretty big fan of Star Wars. At one point in my life, I was determined to watch all of the canon shows and movies and read all of the canon novels. I did not make it through all of the books, and I also didn't make it through all the shows, but I did make it through most, and I feel comfortable doing a little fun ranking video for the fun of it. This is all for fun. Please don't be mad at anything I say. So to start things off, the two canon shows that I have not seen are Young Jedi Adventures, because that show is not made for me, and I also did not watch Dave Filoni's Tales of the Jedi, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't need to watch Dave Filoni break canon for a book that I've already read. In 20th place is The Bad Batch. This show is definitely made for kids. It is full of the most filler content. It is one voice actor having conversations with himself. I just want to know what the deal is with Omega, and I don't have time to watch all of this. In 19th place is Ahsoka, because you cannot convince me that this is a real show. This is an 8-episode advertisement for whatever is coming next. Literally all that happens in this is that Thrawn comes back to the galaxy, which could have been a line. If they can say somehow Palpatine returned and it works, then they can say somehow Thrawn returned and it works. I do want to say there's a lot of discourse about how Sabine got stabbed in the stomach with a lightsaber and somehow lived. And please shut up. Okay, yes, Qui-Gon Jinn did get stabbed in the gut and die, but Darth Maul got literally sliced in half and lived, and nobody complained about it. In 18th place is Book of Boba Fett. This show could have solved so many problems if it had just called itself The Mandalorian Season 3. Why was it that the 2 episodes I was most engaged in were 2 episodes where Boba Fett was nowhere to be found? In 17th place is Resistance. This is a super cute little kids show. It was not made for me, but I sat down and I watched it anyway, and I actually had a pretty good time with it. I wish that this show had ended with these characters going to Exegol for the big final fight. In 16th place is Rogue One. Look, this movie is great, but this movie is not very rewatchable. Last time I tried to rewatch this movie, it took me 3 days. I'm simply not invested in the characters here. It feels like the whole movie was made for that 1 minute long Darth Vader scene at the end, and I'm sorry, but it is not worth it to watch a 2-hour long movie for a Darth Vader scene. I don't even like the Darth Vader scene that much. A lot of people are watching that thinking, oh my gosh, Darth Vader's so cool, look at him killing all his good guys. And that doesn't bring me joy. In 15th place is The Mandalorian. The first 2 seasons of this show are pretty stinking fun. The 3rd season falls off, in part because every episode is just go there, fight monster, go there, fight other monster. Also the fact that major development happened off screen in between the 2 seasons in another show. In 14th place is The Clone Wars. I'm lumping the movie and the show all together into one thing because it is one thing. And the fact of the matter is, this show has soaring highs and abysmal lows. It is a kid's show. It has tons of filler content. The animation in this show is genuinely horrific. That said, it does have some great stuff. It's nice to get more development for the clone army. It actually reveals to you, whether it means to or not, the fact that the Republic side of things was not that great. Like, the clone army is literally a slave army of meat shields, and the Jedi are literally a religious cult that are taking babies from their parents, indoctrinating them into their weird cult, and turning them into child soldiers, leading slave armies to their deaths. That's pretty freaking weird. In 13th place is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I loved this show when it first came out. I geeked out about it every week with my coworkers. I later rewatched it, and yeah, there's flaws in this. Look, it's got the worst CGI of maybe anything Star Wars related. The shaky cam is so annoying. That said, I loved Reva. I'm not gonna take Reva slander. I think that the kid that they cast to play Leia does a great job. I actually don't like the final showdown as much. That's where it kind of jumps the shark for me. In 12th place is Rebels. This is the best animated Star Wars show. They got the best characters. They got pretty good pacing. They got the Ghost, which is just as iconic as the Falcon. It's one of the most emotional Star Wars shows. Come on now. Now we're moving into the main movies, and I gotta say, I love all these movies. So if I say that I hate a movie or that it's terrible and everything in it is garbage, just don't believe me, because I've watched these movies multiple times and I will watch them multiple more times because I love them. In 11th place is Attack of the Clones. A lot of people say that George Lucas can write plot, he just can't write dialogue, and this movie proves that statement false. I do not believe for 1 second that Padme would hear Anakin admit to slaughtering women and children in cold blood, justify it by calling them animals, and then turn around and kiss and marry him. Be honest, if somebody told you that they killed women and children and then they blamed Obi-Wan for it, would you turn around and be like, I want to kiss and marry you? I don't think that you would, and I also don't think that you are better than Padme, so clearly there's a massive flaw in the writing here that goes beyond just dialogue. Our Queen Amidala would not do that. Anyways, in 10th place is Return of the Jedi. This movie is so painfully made in the 80s. They called it the Slave Leia outfit? What is that about? Literally, George Lucas was just doing fan service for the sweaty, stinky little 80s fanboys, and I hate that. The fact that Leia was forced to wear a sexy outfit against her will, was put in chains and tied to a giant slug who horn dogs her the whole time, that is way too much. It is disgusting. It is so gross. Make it stop. Take it off of the screen right now. Oh my gosh. Episode 6 also highlights just how poorly planned the original trilogy was. The sequel trilogy gets a lot of criticism for being poorly planned, but the reality is the original trilogy was less planned because they decide at the last minute to make Luke and Leia siblings, which results in us having footage of siblings kissing in the previous movie. Once again, with the incest. I am so tired of movies that I watch having incest in them. Take it away. I don't like that movie very much. The Ewoks are cute though. In 9th place is A New Hope. This movie is a classic. It's just a bit boring, isn't it? Yeah. This is the film that first introduces the concept of the fully operational Death Star, which we see a total of 3 times, and each Death Star lasts about a duration of 1 movie long. It's not a good idea. I don't like that this movie sets the precedent of blowing up planets in Star Wars, and the way that people react like nothing too serious has happened. Like, surely billions of people are just gone. Star Wars needs to stop blowing up planets right now. I will throw out at this point too, when I'm watching the original trilogy, I'm watching the special editions. If you want to watch the canon Star Wars movies, you should probably watch the special editions and just grin and bear it. Because that's the vision. I don't know why. In 8th place is Solo. Make Solo 2 happen. Look, the train heist, super dope. The Kessel Run, also super dope. In 7th place is The Phantom Menace. I love The Phantom Menace. It's my first Star Wars movie, so it has a special place in my heart. I love Jar Jar. I love the Gungans. I love the pod race. I love Maul. I love the finale with all of the different things going on in it. That said, on my last rewatch, I did finally see the flaws that are pretty glaringly obvious in this movie. Qui-Gon goes to Tatooine, finds out that these people are slaves, and instead of using his Jedi powers to free the slaves, he gambles with the child's life, puts the child in peril, and then leaves the mother in slavery. Qui-Gon, you have a moral duty to free the slaves if you find slaves. I'm sorry, but you're a freaking Jedi. I need you to act like it. Also, I have seen and I agree with the criticisms that certain alien characters feel like racist caricatures, and I have to take points off of this movie for that. Look, when my brother and I were kids, we imagined what future Star Wars movies would be called and what would happen in them. And episode 11 for us was going to be called Return of the Gungans. That's how ride or die we were for the Gungans. Folks, this is why fans should not be allowed in the writer's room, because if I was ever let into a Star Wars writer's room, the first 4 words to come out of my mouth would be Return of the Gungans. In 6th place is The Force Awakens. This movie rules. I know it's a repeat of episode 4 in practically every way, but it does episode 4 better than episode 4 did it. It's more fun. I watched it in theaters 5 times. Kylo Ren and Han's scene, that's one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars right there. When he drops his helmet and it just thunks onto the ground. Oof. That said, the one criticism I'll give this movie is that Star Killer Base scene where it blows up multiple planets. That was way too much. You blew up too many planets. One is too many planets. Stop blowing up planets, Star Wars. In 5th place is Rise of Skywalker. Hear me out. Every single Star Wars movie is fun and a bit dumb. And it just so happens that this movie is the most fun and the most a bit dumb. I can rewatch this movie like nobody's business. When Ben Solo and Han have their conversation, it mirrors everything they said in episode 7, but the meanings of the words have changed. Come on! That's the best scene in Star Wars. When you find out that it was Palpatine who was pulling the strings across all 9 films, come on, that guy is too goated. When Rey rejects Palpatine's legacy and chooses to be a Skywalker, because we can all choose to be a Skywalker. Family is more than blood, and we don't have to follow in the footsteps of our fascist grandparents. Come on! When the voices of the Jedi speak to Rey at the end, and we hear voices from the Clone Wars and Rebels, come on! The fact that Poe and Finn totally kissed off camera, and that's canon because I said so. Come on! The fact that Finn is force sensitive? Come on! Somebody get this man a lightsaber! This is the best Star Wars movie. Objectively, it is the most Star Wars movie. It's insane. It makes no sense. Think about how this movie ends. Ben Solo does what Anakin never could when he sacrifices himself to save Rey's life. This movie features an incredible scene at the end where the people of the galaxy actually show up to fight, and that's freaking awesome. It's the proletariat pulling up. This mirrors a line that Anakin said way back in episode 1, where he said that the number one problem in the universe is that nobody helps each other. Well, guess what, Anakin? They're here now, and they're here to oppose fascism. If I could criticize anything in this movie, which I can't, but if I could, I would say that the kiss between Poe and Finn should have happened on screen. Also, Luke is more cool in episode 8 than in this. Lastly, they do blow up a planet, which is a no-go for me. Do not blow up planets, Star Wars. In fourth place is Revenge of the Sith. I've written about this one. All of the politics of the prequels come together in this film to show us how fascists take power by manipulating sad white edgelords into selling out democracy for a girl just to kill her in the process. Or to put it another way, the lightsaber fights in this movie are so cool. Look, this is the saddest Star Wars movie. It's devastatingly sad. The point of this movie is to show the fascists take power. So you're watching the people lose their freedom and their hope. You're watching the Jedi get mass murdered, and Palpatine lies to justify it. And we've seen that before. It's very horrific when mass murders happen and get covered up by the government. Anakin in this is the victim of the biggest get duped campaign in the history of cinema. I will say though, to Obi-Wan specifically, come on, dude. When your job was to kill the guy and he's literally burning and suffering, at that point, it's a mercy killing. You're just gonna leave him there? That's crazy. In third place is Empire Strikes Back. This is objectively the best Star Wars film, and if this is not the #1 ranked Star Wars film on your list, you're kind of a dummy. That said, the #1 ranked Star Wars film on my list is The Last Jedi. Do y'all have any idea how cool it is to see Luke Skywalker talk trash about the Jedi in the prequels? I'm glad that this movie didn't decide to make Luke Skywalker a god with no flaws. I'm glad that it acknowledged that he's still a human. It acknowledges that the fact that in episode 6, when he's literally about to beat his dad to death, that wasn't just a fluke, that was a genuine character flaw. Luke's first impulse is to cut somebody down when they threaten his loved ones. Anakin's big mistake in episode 3 was getting Force visions where he foresaw the death of Padme, and in trying to prevent that death, he went about and caused it. And Luke, in the same way, foresees visions of Kylo Ren being very horrific, and kind of in his own way helps to cause that, doesn't he? So it's sort of like one of those poetic Star Wars moments. The Canto Bight scene is a stunning critique of capitalism in the middle of a Star Wars movie made by Disney. It's kind of ridiculous that this exists, but we're watching the warmongers live on a planet of luxury, completely outside of the war, profiting from selling weapons to the good guys and the bad guys. Where have we seen that before? So yeah, I'm not gonna sit and be like, Canto Bight scene was a waste. People who say that just can't handle critiques of capitalism. I really like Finn's arc in this. In episode 7, we see Finn go from a deserter who wants to run away to somebody who's willing to fight for his friend. And then the arc for episode 8 is him going from I will fight to save my friend to I will fight for a cause. And I think that that's a compelling arc. I think that we need to see that. I think that the finale with Finn facing off against the giant tank is one of the most insane bits in Star Wars. I like the way that episode 8 talks about the balance of the Force. It explains the balance of the Force in the best way that it's ever even explained in the movies. Luke explains it really well, but not only does he do that, it's like a running theme where Snoke talks about it. Kylo Ren and Rey literally embody the balance in the Force. And then you get to dig into why Luke is there on that island, and it's because he's trying to restore balance, not through a forceful light, but through a pacifist light. And so I love that his finale moment where he stands off against Kylo Ren is still a pacifist moment. One of the other things I like about episode 8 is the way that it picks up right after episode 7. You don't see that in like any other Star Wars film. And for me, this works because the sequel trilogy is different from the first 2 trilogies. This is how I look at the 3 trilogies here. The prequel trilogy is about the rise of fascism, how fascists creep in and take control. Then the original trilogy is about the power of the proletarian revolution. And the sequel trilogy is saying you have to remain vigilant because the fascists will try to regain their power. That's why the socialist state exists, because once you take power from the fascists, they're going to try to take it back. In episode 7, that Starkiller base shot, it blows up the planets that house the New Republic government, and I think the military as well. And of course, the movie doesn't explain any of that because the movie wanted to steer very far away from the politics because the prequels were criticized for being so political. So it doesn't really tell you why those planets were targeted, but that's why they were targeted. They were trying to destroy the existing government, and then their plan was to take over. And because the movie doesn't explain this to you, you kind of just feel like, wow, all of the events of the previous trilogies are pointless because in episode 7, the Empire just takes control once again. But the reality is, they don't take control. They don't control the galaxy the way that the Empire did after episode 7. They make one big move, and then their big cannon gets taken out. And then in episode 8, their whole fleet is chasing down this resistance, and their whole big fleet gets taken out. It's kind of like Palpatine is on his last leg. He's using clones and puppets to try to keep himself alive. He's jacked into a giant machine on a dark lightning planet surrounded by what has to be the most boring people in the whole world. And it's his last desperate attempt to take it back, and he fails within like a year and a half. So for me, it works really well. Now that said, the thing in the number 1 spot, the best Star Wars content, is Andor. Andor solos every other thing that we've talked about here. It is an incredible portrayal of the revolutionary aspects of the rebellion. It makes it very clear that this is revolution, that this is the working class against an empire, and it's freaking awesome. It is the most Workers of the World Unite show ever made. Truly, the only things that we have to lose are our chains. Down with the Empire. I'll share a couple more fun facts with you. I think that the proper way to watch the Star Wars films is in chronological order. It makes Darth Vader's story in the original trilogy more meaningful. My favorite Jedi at the moment is Rey Skywalker. Would love to know your favorite Jedi in the comments below. I gotta say, I feel like the sequels really did a number on Star Wars fans. I was involved in all that. I was a little right-wing boy when The Last Jedi came out, and I got sucked into the right-wing hate train of The Last Jedi. And there were people on Twitter that I was talking to where I watched them set up their YouTube accounts, and now they have like 70,000 subscribers, and they're still making videos complaining about Star Wars. They have stuff about like how Gina Carano was like fired still, and I'm just like, dude, how are you like 40 years old and waking up every day to complain about Star Wars? This right-wing hate group that was built around just hating Rian Johnson and hating The Last Jedi, they went in and were like calling for a boycott of Captain Marvel because they were not pleased to have a female superhero take the lead. And that was just, it's so gross to think about. And I was there. I was in it with them. It was a very not good time of my life. I feel much better just enjoying the movies. Because it's like I said, Star Wars is fun and stupid. And they're all fun and stupid. There's no Star Wars movie that has no stupid bits. They all have such stupid bits in them that like it's so silly to take it so seriously. That's the ranking. Frankly though, the one I'll rewatch probably more than any of these is The Rise of Skywalker. The Star Wars movies that I'm excited for in the future. I'm so excited that there's a new Rey movie coming out. I'm very interested in the movie that they've teased that's supposed to be about like the starting of the Jedi and the Force. I do not care very much at all for the Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau Mandoverse. I don't want a billion shows and movies all interconnecting to like try to bring together one story. Just make a movie. I'm just more interested in them expanding beyond the existing timeline. I want to see new things. Please like, comment, or subscribe if you would like to. Thank you very much. Have a good one. And yes.